Hey, welcome, folks.
Hello.
Thank you for tuning in. Oh, I should probably make sure audio's
Hi.
definitely on. Okay, yeah. Okay, audio's definitely on now. Thanks for tuning in for this special. I don't know if it's not an Infinite review, but we're on the Infinite channel, and we get a chance to talk with the folks of Team Plus. Hi,
the whole team for Pathfinder Infinite Insider is here, so I think it still counts.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Although, and I'm here as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
How about you? I mean, everybody's come over here. You don't need introductions, but still say who you are.
Derry, please.
Okay, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Derry. I am the host of Dice Will Roll, the greatest Pathfinder podcast on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
I am the artist for Team Plus, and I am also obviously one of the writers. It is 2 a.m. here, and everyone that hears that is like, "Oh my God, why are you up at 2 a.m.?" And the answer is, I'll just sleep later. It's fine. I'll get my hours. We'll get to it when we get to it. That's me. Hi.
Mm-hmm.
Hi.
Hi.
And I am Tony. I am the very, project running driven half of the. I have no artistic ability. I do okay
Writing
at layout.
is art.
You are, yes,
Right.
it is.
Writing is art. We'll go with that. Yeah. So I am also I'm calling us co-founders, Derry. That's the way that I like it. That sounds very, very fair. So, that's me. So I do have a lot of other writing and stuff too, but some of which I can't talk about. Maybe someday. But I do love what we do at Team Plus, and I'd say that's probably where my heart actually is. Okay.
Well, hey, how did you co-founders decide to partner up, come together? Co-founders.
Derry, do you want? You were the reason, I think, the catalyst, if you will.
Yeah. So, like I said, I run Dice Will Roll, and it was about a little over a year now. It must be. We were getting ready to play Fist of the Ruby Phoenix as our our third campaign on the show, and one of the characters there is a witch, and we wanted this witch to be, of all things, a magical boy with like ocean powers, which was not at all supported by the witch presently. Like, I think the only two primal witch things at the moment are at the time it was released, at least, it was the Ice Witch and the the other Nature Witch one, the one that gets the
Wildling World. I think it's just called Wild Patron.
Yeah, that one. Which neither of those really lend themselves to the C team we were going for, and we were like flipping around. We were like, maybe we'll make him an occult witch instead, maybe. But I decided, no, which seems easy to make stuff for. I know what I'll do. I don't want to make a homebrew patron because it'll look unbalanced to people who don't know that I've worked hard on it. So I'll go and make the most incredibly busted patron possible and ask for advice. It's got range grab. It does damage every turn. It's great. And I remember I posted this in the Infinite Reviews Discord, and I was asked, does anyone have any feedback? And I think this is where you come in. I don't know your side of the story here, so I'll pass on to you, Tony.
So I guess what I'll say is I have been a witch simp since like the beginning. Like on the most active playtest by a large margin, argued for, no, Saunders a divine witch, give us the divine. So like all over the forums for that, had many takes on it. So I've been a huge familiar fan, written supplements for familiars, love familiars. So somebody pretty much just says the word witch and I immediately tune in. And so when Derry posted the Sea Patron Witch, I was immediately agreed. There's no real good way to recreate that exact vibe within a witch patron. And even though I think the You say witch 3 times, I agree, for sure. Even though I think that the original iteration was a touch strong. We'll go with a touch strong. As always, Derry always has this vision for something that shoots for the stars with power involved too, but the flavor's always there. So all you have to do is beat it back down. And so I think then you said, well, you know, like I was thinking of doing like a whole book on witches. I think is how you mentioned it to me, because I think you mentioned something in chat, and then I was like, I would, you know, like if you want to do that, I'm not in any projects right now. I think was what I said. I just launched Wanderer to Legendary Games like about a month before, so I was like right in the middle of projects, and I really love Witch, so.
And I don't think I don't know about you, but I think there was this, when we were doing it, we were like, this is really good. Maybe we'll sell 20 copies. There was this feeling of...
Yeah, a little more than that. 100 times... No, wait.
It was very... I remember being... Do you remember? So, like, when we first did it, we did our channel. We outgrew the channel on Infinite Possibilities Discord. Because we used to do Witches Plus stuff there. And... Sean from EOG was in there. Sean's fantastic. We worked with Sean early on the layout side of things to get things out of the go. And like Dustin and Sean were the only other 2 people that could see this channel when Derry and I were in it, and we launched Witches on the first. It was a PaizoCon weekend. We launched it that Friday, and I still remember us like, oh my god, how many? It was like, we're gonna hit 50? It hasn't even been a day. Like, we were... So, like, I'm sure Sean and Dustin could probably attest to the fact that we were losing it in chat. Like, we did not think we were gonna be... We didn't have any idea what we were in for. It's funny, because even as, like, successful and, you know, exciting that first day was, I still think I would have told you were... maybe a little unhinged if you had said we'd be where we are now. I'd be like, excuse me? I was like, nobody is no. Like, no.
And that's 100%. Like, obviously what we do is great, but that's 100% because people are like very, very willing to like put their trust in us and be like, okay, they've done us right before, let's see what happens next. Like, if it weren't for everyone in chat, we wouldn't be where we are. I want you to know, by the way, just for funsies, I did pull up a list of names that we floated for ideas for Witches Plus, because the Plus thing only came in, I think, like last minute.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's so weird how things worked out.
We have Witches Beyond, Tome of Witches, Lessons Learned Witches, Witches Plus, of course, and Witches Squared.
Witches Squared. That's funny that was ever considered. I think Lessons Learned, I think I like that one, and I think it's pretty funny because I think all of the major naming decisions across our entire products has been Derry. I'm like pretty sure. Even most of the feats sometimes will end up being Derry, but I do remember Derry was the one that was like, what about something simple, like that's to the point, gets the, you know.
The marketing guy in my head was like, well, if this somehow does blow up, let's have something that's snappy that people will remember. And then it worked. I was like, oh wow, okay, cool.
You made that exact comment. You were like, well, what would we do next if this was like really good? And I remember thinking, I'm like, let's see how this one goes, you know, but I was like, all right, you know, good point. I was like, let's just, let's see. Good call. And now our whole name, our identity is
literally
based on that.
All from that
one little decision. So when you got started, like, what did you think a year out would look like? It doesn't sound like this.
I don't know that I thought that it would be any. I don't know. Derry, did you know? I don't think I would have ever guessed.
No, I think I was very happy with Witches Plus, but like I genuinely thought that like at most there might be like another book, and then that second book wouldn't do as well, and we wouldn't come back for a third one. And then Oracles Plus also sold really well, and people were asking dropping to their knees, being like, please do cleric, please do cleric, please do cleric. and we were like,
Pray
okay.
on their knees.
And then cleric did like better than either of them, and it was like, okay. What's the lightning in the bottle thing? What was it?
The Tesla coil, yeah.
Yeah,
Tesla coil in a bottle.
It just keeps doing lightning in the bottle. We can't stop it.
That was the thing that was, I think that's when we started to realize it wasn't just a fluke, that maybe we had figured out what the magic recipe was. And I think that it was a lot of things. I don't know if that you can point. I mean, I think Derry's art is honestly really eye-catching, immediately brings you in, sets the tone for the material that you're going to read, and it's freaking gorgeous. So I cannot be, thankful enough that we have such a great artist to, co-found the product that's also a good writer. Like, really, I just got super lucky. That's kind of what it came down to. But
I will also say, this whole this project has been insanely good for my self-esteem when it comes to my art.
Oh,
because I'm not gonna go sympathy fishing here or anything, but the first Pathfinder project that I worked on and is now almost ready to come out. I think within the next month, I want to say, but I've been saying that for a while, but it actually is coming together.
No deadlines.
Was Safe Haven, which was a Weird West story, and I'm very proud of it. But when the Kickstarter for that went out, a recurring thing people were saying was like, I don't know if Saturday morning cartoons mesh well with Pathfinder. And I was like, oh wow. Well, it's all I know how to draw, so...
Oh, it's so beautiful, though. Oh my God.
It's okay to be wrong. Those people don't understand.
It's okay to be
I'm not trying to sympathy fish. I'm not saying they're wrong and I'm right. But it has been generally very reassuring how excited people have been about my art, specifically for the Team Plus content. I think the best I've ever felt was, and this is a weird one, was someone saying that the Impossible Lands Plus, one of the art pieces is a flesh warp, which is a hybrid gorilla elephant thing.
Oh, yeah.
Gorophant. I love it.
People said that it was genuinely very frightening, and I, who love drawing scary stuff and want to draw horror one day, was like, yes, it worked. Excellent.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, I feel like the Team Plus original, the Classes material, I definitely feel has a different tone than the Impossible Lands material to some extent. And I do feel like you have... It's more than Saturday Night Cartoons to me, but... I guess, Helen, the big tip-off for us was then when we saw that subsequent releases of our material didn't sell worse, they sold faster than the previous material. Barbarians, don't get me wrong, I think that we did a really great job with Barbarians. I love what we did with that book. I think we brought the flavor. I think anybody can tell you that they're not thinking of Barbarians as a weak class or that they're in need of help or anything. So we focused on just expansion, and that book broke all our records as far as sales.
That was insane.
Immediately.
It was actually insane.
Electrum was it 3 days, and then gold in 3 weeks.
Tony's
gold in 3 weeks.
this update, because I'm trying to do the newsletter, and I'm like, I might as well just hold off another day on the newsletter to say it's gold.
That's exactly what happened. we made silver the same day, which was, and I went back and checked the stats on how we did on other ones, and I was proud of us before, and every time we seem to do a little bit better. So that's, I think, I don't know. I mean, at that point, we had already kind of, I think we'd come to terms that this wasn't the lily pad. This was, the other side of the river. At some point, I don't know when. I think probably clerics. Somewhere in the clerics neighborhood.
I think, yeah, because Oracle, there was still oh, wow, this is really well, but surely it won't happen a third time. And then it happened a third time. It's okay, well... Okay, we've got something going here.
We do.
Yeah.
I don't know if this happened, Barbarians, Clerics, but I think for the Firebrand's release, I saw some people saying they're buying Firebrands Plus before Firebrands. So you guys have done something very right.
Yeah.
But what have you done in Firebrands?
I mean, one, I think our authors for that book really, really brought it. The
Exactly.
initial vision that Dana Ebert brought was amazing. You know, Dorji and Jamie did a fantastic job with writing. Derry did a fantastic job with writing. I sprinkled in a little bit of an additional system. And so I feel like that book kind of brings together like a lot of different vibes to be able to run a game that you want to run. And then us releasing it at the same time as NPC Index Firebrands, kind of in a partnership with Jamie. You know, like
Caught
people
me by
basically
surprise.
were like, pirate campaign, liberation campaign, you know, like freedom fighter campaign, done, right? Like buy these 2 books, I've got what I need, let's go play. And whether or not people get Firebrands, first of all, that book is incredible.
It's a fantastic book. Like, genuinely.
Get that book. Like, a lot of what we did, we kind of built on the backs of what they did in that book. So, please consider Firebrands for those of you that haven't yet. But it is, I am very proud of what we did in Firebrands Plus. I mean, Derry, how did you feel going into that project? Because I think we did pretty
was delighted to be able to work on it. I've run Hell's Rebels, and it remains one of my favorite campaigns. So when I was able to write Hell's Rebels adjacent content, and like this, the character right here on the screen below Helen, that's Cielo Portung. He is I didn't play him, but he was my partner's character. He is a skald, former pirate. His bardic performance was true rap, but specifically this type of rap that is very common in like Latin American countries, which is very like fast and flowing. So it was being able to enrage people through that was like really impressive, and being able to draw him one last time and then write a Silver Ravens archetype was like Christmas. I was so happy.
Oh man, that's great.
I love that archetype. When I read the dedication, I was like, Derry's flexing. I was like, this is just he's just clearing his throat, but he's gonna flex in this. I had only read the first one. I knew it was gonna be good.
I know you touched on it briefly there, but what was it like, you know, doing a companion product? And I know part of it was that, you know, Jamie was on the team, but explicitly coming out with, hey, we're gonna have Firebrands Plus and, you know, partnering for having NPC Index Firebrands. You know, do you think you'll do those type of things in the future?
I mean, I can take this one, Derek. So I feel like that one kind of came down to Jamie just approached us. He was like, hey, listen, I'm putting some content in this book that's based on content I wrote for Firebrands
Oh, okay.
Plus.
There you go. That's great.
It would be a good idea, I think, to release them together. What do you think? And I was like, yeah, let me ask Derry. And Derry was like, yeah. And so we did. And it was really that simple. Like, somebody came to us with an idea. We were like, that's a good idea. Let's do it. Let's launch on the same day. We have completely different vectors to compete in, you know, to be honest. Like, NPC, very focused on the other side of the table. Firebrands Plus, very focused on the player side of the table. So, you know, why turn down a good fit? So that, I think it wasn't necessarily planned, but it did make sense.
It's great. Very Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, you know, best of both worlds.
Pretty much.
I'm wondering if this is the time to take the conversation to what happened a month ago. The elephant. So
Are we gonna...
what were you guys? What were you doing on April 26th at about, I think, was it 1:00 Eastern?
I can actually answer this exactly.
Oh my goodness.
I can answer this exactly because the day that Core was announced, Alchemist Plus had been voted as the next thing, and that wasn't really a surprise to Tony or I. But we were certainly, I don't want to say dreading it, because that makes it seem like it's a bad thing. We don't want to do Alchemist Plus. We do, but we knew that it was going to be a monumental task, because here's the problem with Alchemists. Every single one of their subclasses, which is primarily what we make, is tied to items. And each subclass has like 30 different items. So I was specifically, this is really funny, I was specifically going through iconic, not Pathfinder, Dungeons and Dragons monsters. I was trying to find the most popular monsters possible to make monster parts from. I was like, okay, owlbears, everyone knows owlbears. Mimics, everyone knows mimics. Otiogs, however that's pronounced. So when it was announced, they were like, yeah, we're like doing core. I was at first like, shit. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but
I'm certainly fine.
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Hopefully the audience can handle it.
Cool. With the case of Otiogs, yeah. But I remember seeing that and being like, and then I was like, wait, that means we can actually potentially pivot away from alchemists, give us a little longer to think about how the hell we're going to do like 120 items in one book.
It's that book, I mean, it's one of those classes where if you play it correctly, it is quite good. And it's always difficult for us to do things like, even with clerics, like we had to solve a similar problem in clerics, but it was very localized. Clerics has a problem with people having a different perception of what they want the war priest to be. And so we were trying to solve part of that problem in the book to help people feel more like the war priest they were imagining. So we gave options for that, but we had to do it in a way that didn't float up the cloister to levels they should be at. So I think we strided the line on that one pretty simply because it was a little bit more compartmentalized and we handled it with we were careful. But the problem with Alchemist is that's all of it. That's the whole thing. You move this lever here, and so it's like trying to balance 80 plates. It's just so much, and you spin one too hard.
It's so funny because I think the moment I realized, oh god, Alchemist is going to be a nightmare, is because first off, the thing we like to do more than anything else is to expand, not rewrite. Like we're not Paizo. We're not trying to be like.
We try to avoid it at all costs.
But everyone really likes it when we do it.
Unfortunately.
So, but with Alchemist, I think the moment I realized we're screwed was, and again, I'm saying I sound very pessimistic here. I am so excited to go back to Alchemist once Core comes out. It's just it's a blessing in disguise that they were like, okay, actually, we're going to give you a year to wait. And we're like, thank you. Thanks. Because what everyone wants from Alchemist, there's two camps. The people who play Alchemist really well as Alchemist is, and people who want Alchemist to be this entirely different explosion class, right? And the thing, like I've said it 3 times and then got distracted each time. The moment I realized that it was going to be difficult was that Alchemist, people said, we want to hit more accurately with Alchemists. And we were like, okay, we give them master proficiency. Then we looked at the damage bombs do if you give them master proficiency, and it scales so, oh my god, you cannot give them master. It's impossible. They become like fighters on crack cocaine, like it's impossible to keep them
different
in
class.
line.
It's just, there are just too many, and the thing is everybody has a different idea of, quote, how to fix them. And the problem is you fix them one way, it can introduce other problems in another. So you're basically just playing whack-a-mole. And I think with the way Alchemist is currently designed right now, it would be very difficult for us to not just be creating something that's different but has problems of its own than it will be to try to build on something that's a little bit closer to what people maybe originally envisioned the first time. I'm not sure what the new Alchemist will look like. I have heard the words, some people have said it was direct quote, that it was full rework. I did hear rework, I didn't hear the full, but maybe that's true. I don't know. However much changes it gets, we are very excited to work in those themes. I know Derry was excited to do some cool art for that book in particular. But
I before I became an animator, I actually did work I was working in science. I was going to be a chemical engineer for a long time, and then I was like, actually, I don't know how to do math, so I dropped out. But that's very literally how it happened. 4 months in, I was like, oh no, and then I was gone, and next year I was in animation school. But
Awesome.
I've always really liked how cool science looks. Chemicals bubbling, filtration towers, reactions, the goggles, the coats, I was so excited. I have the image of Alchemist Plus cover in my head, and thematically, mechanically, it was going to be a nightmare. Thematically, I had so many ideas for really cool stuff to do. Like, can we give spoilers for like?
I was
stuff
gonna
that's,
say,
like,
if you want to tease a couple of things, because I think some of that stuff will probably still come back, especially the theme stuff you're talking about.
We wanted to do a perfumist, maybe, or an aerosolist, like someone who uses alchemical gases and sprays. There was, oh god, what was the other one? There was one we were really excited about as well. Obviously there was going to be like a bottled monster one.
Yeah,
That was
the
literally
bottle
what I was working on.
monstrosity was Derry. It's funny because I had to break it to the playtesters. I was like, yeah, Derry actually had a bunch of them. Are like I want to say it wasn't like 20 something.
I think it was 20
monstrosities.
It was very fun. We had like scaling dragons, like you get like they're like bomb scaling. You have like a little dragon you can throw and he shoots a weapon, and then you get bigger dragons. You had like dinosaurs in bottles. Yeah, it was fantastic. It was the first party I ever GM for was in Carrying Crown, and one of the characters was a alchemist who had the preservationist archetype, and she had like just bottles full of like shrunken monsters, and she would throw them out in battle and basically Pokemon with them. And I was channeling a lot of that. I was having a great time.
There was some great stuff that we came up with. I mean, I guess spoiler in case anybody. Maybe I shouldn't reveal too many of the secrets of the mechanics, but there was a concept we did for dragons, fiends, and maybe a couple of other ones that I think we managed to cut together some mechanics that would make Bottled Monstrosity a lot of fun and also pretty versatile in a way that I feel like current Bottled Monstrosities don't quite get all the way there yet.
And I don't think that's for lack of trying. I just think there's not enough of them at the moment. I think there's like 12 bottled monsters.
It's only a few.
The
idea's there. That's for us to expand on.
Yeah, that's very true. I love it when Paizo leaves us those, they put enough out where you have a very good model to work with, and it's like, this is for somebody else to take and run with. And that's the kind of stuff that we really like to play it out, especially I do feel like in Firebrands we try to do that a lot, where they laid the groundwork and we just had to go in and kind of fill things out. So but yeah, unfortunately, as Derry said, we had to take Alchemist down, which I think that's the first time we've ever we didn't cancel the vote, we just gave the vote to second place.
Because I feel if we had gone into the discussion we had was, hey, we could keep going with Alchemist, but that would mean that like come a year from now we might need to put a lot of time into totally rewriting the book, depending on, because like it could be minor change, we don't know. Maybe Alchemist gets like a few proficiency changes and that's it, or it could be a total rework and suddenly it's a different class wearing the skin of the Alchemist, drinking concoctions and throwing bombs everywhere. In the latter case, we would have to take a ton of time out of our current schedule to go back over Alchemist Plus. We don't mind like doing like little reworks to our current products, which we'll touch on that again later. But I don't think we want to rewrite our entire book if we can.
That would be a bit overboard, I think. I mean, I think you kind of had. I mean, we do like to go back, add stuff when it makes sense, and as you said, Derry, we'll get on how much changes happen. But without even having the groundwork to really work, to know what Alchemist is going to look like, it just was, I don't know. It just seemed like the wrong play to make, because not only would, if we made it now, people would be like, well, how relevant is this book going to be in come. I think it'll be January is core 2, I want to say, or February. I think it's winter.
Yeah.
But I don't. Or no, yeah, it's 2024.
I think Core 2 is even like July next year. It's like,
oh, is it June? Actually, maybe I'm getting
it's like
J's
very
wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah, like, it might. Yeah, so
You're gonna make me look this up.
I mean,
sorry.
it's one of those things where we could have, I guess, but also the thing when I heard full rework was a possibility, I thought about it, and unlike other pieces of the game where you can kind of change things and it affects more than you think if you do too much of a change, only really Alchemist uses alchemical items all that much.
Yeah.
So you shake that, you can shake that bottle up quite a bit without really affecting much else. I mean, you affect forensic, and maybe like honestly, you'd affect more for Team Plus material with Alchemist changes than you might with actual Paizo material. Like maybe the Poisoner archetype, maybe like one of the I forget the other one that people always Herbalist. That's the other one of the other ones.
Oh,
so.
Yeah.
And how much will those change? We really don't know. They didn't talk about item system changes, things like that. So it just, there were a lot of reasons we had to say no. We don't like backing down from certain, vote winners. But I feel like nobody was super upset about the Magus. We did have a couple of people that were like, Alchemist won, and we were like, we know, but
you did
we just couldn't. Yeah, we did. And the thing that felt really bad about it is, at no point was it ever contested to not be Alchemist ever. Like, it was not close. Alchemist won by a large margin.
I think I posted when we announced that Alchemist won, I showed the margin, and it was like a landslide.
Yeah, it was never possible for anybody to. And the previous rank choice being Barbarians, that one was a very, hot topic. Like, we were excited. Like, eliminating down the line, I was like, no way. How the only ones that weren't shocking was I think Rogue and Fighter always perform pretty close to the bottom. Psychic also pretty close to the bottom because people are just very fine with how those classes are right now. They don't think they need expansions, and Psychic was pretty new. So, but yeah, I think Magus. There's a lot of fertile ground with Magus. I'm not disappointed about it. I know that. I hope that we can kind of bring it for people, and we did. To the Plus testers bullied us today until we gave them a morsel. They heard we were going to talk about Magus, so they were like, "Excuse me, we're the VIP club. Where's our stuff?" And I was like, all right, I guess
give it here.
Some of the material is done, I guess. You could say it's very early. This is EA Plus. Like, you're getting it very early. Like, so.
Yeah. But I will. The thing. Do we want to talk about Magus?
Oh, I thought we were. Yeah, why not?
Do we want to talk about some of the stuff we've done?
That's
the transition.
Cool. Yeah. I think that was. Would you like that? Yeah. Let's segue into.
Yeah,
Magus,
this is our segue. And yeah, I can see Chunk is right. Magus. Like,
I was gonna.
I'm gonna say Magus.
Spend the whole night.
I used to say coup de grace was coupe de Gracie, so if you don't like how I mispronounce things, that's too bad. It's Magus to me.
Yeah.
Magus.
I've been saying Magus, but I'll blend here. The thing that we realized very quickly is that, or at least I've said this like a million times, Tony, and you're probably sick of me saying it, is something that surprised me I hadn't ever considered is that Magus has something that I don't think any other class in Pathfinder has, which is it is not based on mythology. Every other class has like a lot of mythology backing it up, right? Like just looking at barbarians, for example, you've obviously got like the idea of Viking warriors, you've got the Celts, you've obviously got like the berserker tribes that took down Rome, and tons of like iconic, like Conan, Conan the Barbarian. Then you've got like, for example, with wizards, you've got a load of like, fantastic. You've got Gandalf, the Harry Potter series, if you can stomach it.
No.
There's, I mean, even wizards, I would say, is kind of on the lighter side in terms of representation in media. Like even Gandalf, like I've had arguments with people who will say Gandalf is like a druid, right? Because he talks to a butterfly at the top of the tower.
I'm with
He's very in
Gandalf
tune with
druid.
nature. He can Shadowfax is his animal companion. So like,
and
I've lots of different stuff. So
Lord of the Rings is more based on Norse mythology. One could argue that just kind of got ported over, so a druid would actually be a better analog. So, yeah.
I mean, I think it's one of those things where like, I like as you said, like spell swords are pretty rare. I think what would I mean the main one that you came up with, and I was like, yep, probably like was from Star Wars, and I was like, yeah obviously
the Jedi and the Sith. But even then, they're kind of like monk champions.
Yeah, they're very kind of like, they definitely have a lot of the Ronin, you know, vibes, which makes sense since George Lucas completely ripped off like Kurosawa's work, you know, pretty on the nose, but yeah, so it's just kind of it's a difficult class to tackle when you don't have a lot of different things, because Derry and I are very pop culture oriented, I guess. Me as well. Like I think of you know, like I think for a lot of Barbarians Plus, I was pulling from like different stuff, but like one of the movies was the Scorpion King, the third prequel Mummy movie with The Rock. Not a great movie, still cool
but still,
stuff.
Still good inspirations.
Hulk pull shot. I think that's the one. Yeah, so
it's such a good one. But like that's the thing, in every like Classes Plus book, we borrow heavily from like culture and like both pop culture and mythology. Like you have that witch feat that gives you a coven. You have the cleric feats, which are very obviously stemming from like a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of it is like Catholic inspired, but you and I are like, we talked about it when we were making clerics. Is we were both like raised in that culture, so there's a lot of like touchstones. We were like, oh yeah, look, we'll give them tongues of fire. That won't make sense to anyone who isn't like deep in, you know. But like the point is, we had like a lot of cultural things that ended up being very lending quite heavily to the vibes. Like hell, even the Oracle on screen, like that art was like very inspired by the Oracles of Delphi, you know? Magus is literally a class that was made for a mechanical reason rather than a cultural reason. It was put there to be a class that can use magic and a sword. Be good at both, but not better at both. And because of that, pulling up ideas and teams has been a little trickier. I think we've kind of like hit our rhythm by looking at how anime a lot of like the feats are in as written, and just kind of leaning into it, you know. They're all a little bit ridiculous, and I love it.
I think that was the winning number is that anime is surprisingly ripe with just Magus everywhere. Like once I forget, there was you were like, oh well, like that's, you know, Magus's real superpower or their real class identity is really long, complicated names and for things, and then like specifically like naming moves and stuff like that, you know, like which happens in Demon Slayer and like pretty much anything, you know, like whether it be old shows like Yu Yu Hakusho or even like new stuff like My Hero and but I heavily pulled on, we'll do our first teaser drop, which some of the Plus testers already saw this one. So I was a fan growing up of an anime called Outlaw Star, which is it's okay. It's got nostalgia glasses for me, so I will go back and watch it. But I actually just did a rewatch of it like not that long ago. But one of the favorite parts about that show is that Gene Starwind has a caster gun. Yes, Cash has got me in chat here with the caster gun, and caster gun is like the reason to watch the show. Like it's the coolest part of the show. It's basically Gene Starwind's secret weapon, and it requires special shells, and these shells are basically magical. That's why it's called a caster gun, because the gun is literally firing magic out of it. And so when I was designing one of the hybrid studies that I did was the Horizon Spell Shell is what we were calling it. And they make spell shells. And so a lot of the theme of that hybrid study, we definitely leaned into that. I leaned into that anime so very hard. Like, one of the feats is named Eat This, and that is something that Gene says in the anime when he fires his caster gun at somebody, so I just couldn't help myself.
If Luis Loza can get away with writing JoJo Bizarre Adventure, the Hand's ability as a level 20 fighter feat, we can get away with having a hybrid study inspired by a 90s anime, you know?
I think that's the point.
By the way, Mikhail Raccoon, I don't know if you're out there and you hear this, Unexpected Sharpshooter is Vash from Trigun, and you will not convince me that you didn't do that on purpose. I've heard denial.
It has to be a little bit.
I mean, it even has the sidebars like luck or skill, and I was like, oh, okay.
Okay. So all that I'm hearing here is on Magus Plus release day, anime watch-a-thon. I don't know which ones. You guys tell us. Watch party.
What's really fun actually is one thing. Am I allowed to spoil the one I wrote?
Yes, please spoil away. Whichever, even ones that the play testers don't have.
Yeah.
You're allowed to do whatever you want.
Well, I will be giving them one that this isn't on the thing. That's great. Scourging Lash. So
no, that one is on there.
Is
so
it?
They did hear that one. It's really good. So I respect for choosing it.
But basically, when this is just fun because Scourging Lash, I wanted to make one that was inspired by another PC that I ran for. Not played. I barely ever play. I love GMing. But we were playing Tyrant's Grasp, and in that campaign even, one of my players was playing a Magus vampire hunter, you know? And he was a Magus. He had a whip in one hand and a stake in the other hand, and he would whip people and, you know, stab them in the heart with that stake. And I was leaning into that and thinking of, like, cool things he had done or tried to do with that vampire hunter. And I was thinking, here's a non-anime Magus. And then I remembered that this player fucking loves Castlevania.
I was gonna say, I was like,
all back to
Trevor.
Start.
Sounds like Trevor to me, but yeah. I do love Scourging Lash. It is, the vibes are dripping. Like, it's pretty great.
I mean, Whip Magus was, like, extremely popular in 1E, right? Like, everyone loved having a Whip Magus because the damage from your weapon didn't really matter, but Whip gives you reach. So they were the only class that was often using the Whip. And in 2E, that's not really the same case anymore. So people have, they've stopped using the Whip. And I was like, but what if incentive to use Whip? What if a reason to do it?
Oh, man. So my whole Ruby party just retuned, but I got the Magus. There was no reason to retune. So my GM said, okay, when it comes out, you can retune. So I'm waiting.
I do think Magus in particular, like, that's one of the reasons I love the Dice Will Roll run of Ruby is because there's a Magus in that. And Masami is fantastic. That character is dripping. One of my favorites. Laughing Shadow.
Laughing Shadow is it's perfect. Originally, they were actually going to be a rogue with Magus dedication, and they changed literally last minute. And I think that has seriously helped the show because of it. Because Laughing Shadow, it's just very anime, right?
It is.
Like, exactly.
That's
what I play.
Teleport behind someone, and nothing personnel kid.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say that it has the meme as an ability. That's too good.
But what's really interesting is because, like, Laughing Shadow, and this is a fun segue I'm doing. Laughing Shadow is by now the most iconic of the hybrid studies. But funnily enough, it wasn't actually in the original playtest for the Magus.
What?
You had Inexplorable Iron, you had Starlit Span, and you had a third one called spell sliding.
Okay.
And spell sliding was all about you weren't teleporting, you were like zipping around as you were like casting. The idea was like you would be skidding and there'd be sparks of magic as you were going.
Cool.
It's very cool, and that's why we brought it back. So you can go. You can explain the idea of conservation.
Yeah, sure. So we this goes back to, I think we got the guts to do something different in clerics. So we started to flex, and we did two things. We did denominations, which I feel like very Derry driven on very deep cuts of lore, but alters the way deities work, or deities. I've been corrected on that one before. And then we did vocations in that. And people really liked denominations and vocations. They thought they were really cool ways to get variations on clerics. So we did expressions for barbarians plus. And expressions, what we found, are very polarizing. Some people think they're the best things ever. Maybe the best things in the book. And there are some people that don't like them at all and wonder why we did them. So we decided to do more things like that because it would be cool. Because, and I heard this on a stream from Mark Seifter literally last week, that if you have something that people really, really love and some people really, really hate, or you have something versus where it's like people like it okay, or people are like, whatever, the really, really love, really, really hate is 1,000,000 times better every time.
Yep.
And I definitely agree that whether or not you liked expressions, I do feel like the direction we were going in with those kind of mechanics to really open up classes to concepts that you couldn't get in-house. You just can't make an agile weapon user work in Barbarian really without expressions that we made. There's no way to really make that concept work. You have to take a lot of hits to your identity and really not be quite as strong as other barbarians. So for Magus plus, we wanted to try to bring a way to change how a Magus or Magus keeps magical energy after they cast spells. And so right now, the innate way that a Magus does that is they use Arcane Cascade. And then they get to go into this stance, they get to do damage, and they have feats that are based on Arcane Cascade that you can do while you're in the duration, etc., etc. It's very core to the class. So our concept was, well, what if there were different ways to enter a, quote, state that aren't stances, but are like different kinds of things that you could do that will change how you get your conservation of magic. So I'll dip into so slide casting ended up being one of those, which is where instead of the states for damage, you kind of get like temporary boosts where you can like step in between casting spells as part of like doing activities. So you're kind of this really agile, like sliding around, like Derry said with Matt. So I'll reveal another one, and maybe Derry can spoil one more. I like your other one, Derry. If you do want to tease that one.
I was thinking that one. I'm very fond of it. Are you going to do the big one? I'm
gonna do the one that got immediate praise. I won't spoil that one. That one, because I still want to see how plus testers feel about that one in particular, because we might discuss a different way to handle that one in particular. But one that did receive immediate praise was the Marionette Mastery, which is basically the new take on Puppet Master that I try to do for 2E, and that basically revolves around you. When you cast specific spells against people, you can do like a puppet string to them. And then while your puppet string, this invisible thread of magic, is connected, you're considered to be in, quote, your arcane cascade, and you gain additional effects. So like the idea is that each one of these different things are built around states that you enter. And then you can still use all of your arcane cascade abilities. A lot of them have special text for how to handle certain, feats, like what, when someone uses capture magic with Puppet Master, with the creature that targeted you with the effect is the thing that gets the puppet string if you meet the right criteria. So we're trying to build on how we replace the way a magic conserves their magical energy. And I think the official name is Arcane Conservations. That's what we're going
Oh,
with.
right, yes. We were going to give them... Because we can't... We literally just said earlier, everything in Magus has to have a ridiculous long name. Because, I think Spell Shell was the original name of the hybrid study. And I put a note being like, it's not long enough. We got to add another random word to
it. Must have at least 6
3-syllable banger. Horizon. That's pretty good.
The one I'm going to talk about is Spell Ignition. So with Arcane Cascade, the idea... This is funny because we're going to talk science again. And I'm probably going to butcher up the definitions because it's been 6 years. And I know Ed Veer's in the chat and he's a chemical engineer as well, I think he said. So if I get the exacts wrong, I'm very sorry. But with Spell Ignition, the idea is with Arcane Cascade, what you were doing is you were taking in the magical energy of what you just cast and kind of bringing it inwards, you are recycling that strange magic back into you and powering yourself up. And in chemistry, that's kind of like what you would call an endothermic reaction, where the balance of the chemical equation brings the energy inwards. And so you've got something that's very cold because it's seeking, it's kind of pulling in the energy into it, right? Or maybe it's expelling it. It's been 6 years. I'm very sorry. Point is, cold. What's the opposite of cold? Very, very hot. Spell Ignition basically takes that magical energy and instead of bringing it inwards, creates a burning haze around them, right? So magic kind of crackles and burns around you as you are walking towards people. They might start take. We've kind of gone around with the exacts of how it works, but I think it's, if memory serves, it's kind of like an AoE Magus, where the damage, the kind of aura of burning magic that kind of emanates around them for 1 round, or later it can be 2 rounds or 3 rounds, which is very, very helpful for positioning reasons. Because if you've got a creature that's weak to fire, for example, you shoot out a fire spell strike and then suddenly there's an explosion of fire around you that kind of stays in the air. That creature's not going to want to be there for very long. They're going to want to reposition. That's using up their actions. That's forcing the GM to think tactically. It's very fun and also just cool as hell to imagine. Just a Magus walking through this cloud of pain. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and I think with conservations, that was one of the big goals that we wanted to make, is that we didn't want... Cascade really kind of encourages you to enter a stance that you deal damage with your strikes. So it incentivizes doing some beatings, go in there and start hitting people. And we do think that's a very big identity for Magus, is that, obviously going in and swinging the weapon. But as Derry pointed out with Spell Ignition, there are other kind of ways that you can get a Magus to play and incentivize that. So Spell Ignition kind of encourages that battlefield control, and then Puppet, Marionette Mastery kind of, with puppet strings kind of encourages locking in on a specific target and trying to isolate them with lower saves or debuffs and stuff. And then Slide Casting really kind of opens up your positioning to kind of be someone that can move across the battlefield a fair amount, maybe easier if you're Laughing Shadow, or better than you could do normally if you're someone like Inexorable Iron, right? So, and I think they all of the conservations as we have them now, including the one, I guess we should talk about that one. It would be rude not to, I feel like.
It's very cool is the problem. It's the reason we wanted to do them in the first place.
That's very, that is, it was at the top of the list. We both love Black Blade from PF1, which we have dubbed Black Weapon in PF2 from Magus Plus, and that's going to be a conservation as well. And the way it's themed is it's a specific familiar that you gain access to as part of your conservation. And you're basically considered to be in your, quote, arcane conservation if you kill something with if you reduce something to 0 hit points with your black weapon, and you get there's additional abilities you can kind of that you can kind of add to your black weapon to make it trigger Arcane Cascade in other ways. It's called Invigorate.
I'm gonna cut across because I think you put the cart before the horse, Tony. You haven't.
Did I?
For people who don't know what the Black Blade is, it's an intelligent weapon.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
It's an intelligent weapon that's basically your familiar is your sword or your hammer or your whatever, and it's so cool. It's what I've always loved it. It was one of my favorite archetypes to play with in first edition. I had like several players. All of them went for this weapon, for the Black Blade, and I mean, who doesn't want a funny friend who happens to be a sword, right?
Do we know what they based Black Blade on, or just it's such a archetypical thing? It was random.
I hate to be like, I bet it's Soul Eater, but I bet it's Soul Eater.
Okay.
It could be Soul Eater. I think Sword of Cast from D&D is probably like another big inspiration for it. Or even, and I'll say this, it could be reminiscent of like Vampire Hunter D in a way.
True.
Gotcha.
You know, so like Vampire Hunter D's weapon doesn't do a whole lot of talking, but his hand does, and it's super annoying. So, but the I don't know. I think there's a lot of different inspirations, but the talking weapon that's wants different things and doesn't hesitate to tell you about it. I think that concept is too hard to pass up. There's a few implementations we talked about, but I do think that letting it be your familiar kind of allows the player.
Stop hitting yourself. Sorry.
Yeah, the player can kind of decide how to build their own black weapon, which was a big thing that, as Derry and I talked about it, I was like, oh wow, the way that you experienced using Black Blade was very different from mine, because I went very typical edgelord, like my weapon's like thirst for death, give me. And then like Derry was like, oh, mine was a chatterbox, and I was like, really?
His name was Raven's Head. He spoke with a voice like this and would never shut up, and it was quite distracting.
That's delightful.
Very early ancestor of Lolo, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it sounds a little like Lolo. But.
It was Lolo, but without the wisdom and the quiet moments. He was just the most annoying mace in the world. Excalibur, yeah, like in chat, very much so Excalibur vibes. Soul Eater again.
Oh, okay, Soul Eater. So is a big Magus plus reveal here. Was there anything else you wanted to cover on Magus?
We're not supposed to reveal that much.
Talk about anything else.
I mean, we have
got some other stuff coming up.
We do have other stuff that's coming up.
That's true.
I don't think we have to go as in depth because we're still in earlier stages there.
No. We're not going to. We have not even okayed that with the authors. I don't think we can say, oh, by the way, this is going to be
Here, ask the chat. Hey, authors, can I talk about this?
Yeah, but so dodging around what we can, we haven't, we cannot say. We are going to be releasing our biggest book yet for Gen Con. That's going to be Archetypes Plus, which is a big expansion to, God, how many did we end up saying? 30, 25?
Oh. No. I think we stepped, look, you're burying us already. 30, calm down. Whoa. I think we're looking at between 20 and 25 right now is the number that we're.
And that's a lot. Okay. But we also have at least stop me if I'm wrong. We're also looking at a handful of new archetypes to go with the expansions.
Oh, okay.
That is included in the 20 to 25 for anybody that's listening.
I was gonna say. Although I'm excited about the expansions because too many of those archetypes, it's like here's a few feats and you can't even fill out to 20.
Yep, that was very much so a reason that I was a big advocate for Archetypes Plus, is that everyone and their mother uses
6 feet.
free archetypes. You know,
Yeah.
Everyone loves free archetypes.
Why is it not
So you
core?
So you need at least 10 feats per archetype
Yeah.
to be able to get you from level 1 to level 20 with free archetype. And 10 is very bare bones, but it's the minimum you can have to do that. It is shocking. And I don't say that in a mean way. I'm not trying to be like, Paizo, you did bad, because these are amazing feats.
Yeah.
These are amazing archetypes. And you're not writing under the assumption that everyone's using free archetype, because it's not core. But it is perfect for people like us to sweep in and be like, but we'll add a load of them.
Yeah. And I think that one of the big goals with the book is to kind of, I guess, target, some of those lost souls that feel like they really kind of deserve, especially ones that really command like whole games to be, really built around them in order to kind of succeed. Like, I feel like, Indigo Isles did a really good job expanding Pirate, and for a Pirate campaign, I feel like what we have for Pirate is just, from Paizo, that is, it's just, if you're in a Pirate campaign, it's just not enough. Like, especially with free archetype, it's just, like, where are the feats? Give them to me, And I think that kind of holds true for, like, quite a few. I think maybe we can talk about some targets for the book. Derry, I don't know if you want to drop one. I know there's one that I can drop that I am confident is getting targeted, because I've seen some of it written. I don't know which. If you want to reveal any, I can drop them.
I haven't got the mechanics even started. Like, I'm not marinating. Stumbling over my words. One of the ones I know I'm definitely going to end up working on is the Herbalist, because I backed a Kickstarter that was a whole book of magical plants that was system agnostic and just a great reason for here's how you can use plants in your TTRPGs. And I'm now going to use the knowledge I have gleaned from this book to make Herbalist more than just Alchemist light, Nice. Because Herbalist, there's so much cool stuff you can do with it. And if you put it on different classes, the vibes change completely. Like a druid herbalist, you've got this person out in the woods growing their own plants, but then you might have, I don't know, an investigator herbalist, and suddenly you've got a doctor of some sort, who's not using the medic archetype, which is very kind of them. Herbalist is an archetype I'm very excited to work on, but I cannot give you any explanations of the mechanics, because anything I say now could get rewritten in a day or two,
I'd say that's, when we're this early on in the process, and of course Derry and I are very focused on Magus Plus right now. Our other authors are diving in, they're already getting some good stuff down. I know, so we have Archon from Archon's Archive. We have Connor Burkheiser from Minotaurs Unleashed and Cooking Unleashed, so Chunk, if you know them in chat. And then we have Grady Wang, and then we have Christiana, which, Grady and Christiana have been writers for Paizo in freelance world. So I'm very excited to work with all of them. One of the ones that I can tease for, I know that I've seen some early works for others. I've seen Marshall is getting a look.
Marshall.
And then I know that Scrounger is getting a look. And then I think from Chunk earlier today, I saw some stuff. Let me try to find it before I quote wrong. I know Bullet Dancer. They have a mind to target that one in particular. So we're very excited for that. So I'll probably leave it at those for now. I won't dive too much deeper. To answer a question that we saw in chat about what about high starting archetypes such as Time Mage or Lich. So I think, Derry, we kind of came to the conclusion that the undead archetypes, as much as we would have liked to touch them in this book, we think that they are going to require a little bit more than we can afford to give in the space
Plus.
in this book. And that comes down to, it's a couple of reasons. But like, for instance, one big one is that vampires in particular, just based on the strain of vampire alone, you really kind of open that class up to, or that archetype up to so many different directions, to where all of the undead archetypes really in the Book of the Dead kind of command a little bit more. And so somebody has said undead plus win. It'll probably be on a core plus vote at some point. We have talked about that product in particular, so that is likely where those archetypes would end up living. As for Time Mage, I will say that it's not a guarantee. The archetypes that we did want to target when we talked about it was specifically APG archetypes, but we reserve the right to make exceptions and inclusions of anything on as we find it's a good fit for the book with the writers that we have. I can't say that Time Mage has come up. I would say things like Elementalists probably are off the table as well because of Rage of Elements and things like that. Plus, there's so many good options like Gladiator begs it. I'm hoping to get to tackle Assassin myself. I'd really like to sprinkle in some of those 3.5 vibes that they gave to Red Mantis. They just gave all the fun stuff to Red Mantis, and it's not fair. I want the base archetype to have something. So yeah, I'm planning to do something with that. So Shadow Dancer is another one that we felt was like in a really good spot. If there was a high level archetype that we wanted to target, I would say that the plan would just be to make it feel whole once we get there. But for instance, Shadow Dancer and like Shadow Caster both got discussed. I think at best what you could expect is a single page that's kind of dedicated to both of those. But again, I would say that's probably unlikely at this point. So I wouldn't say we're targeting any high-level archetypes right now. Spoilers. But that can change. Nothing's set in stone for that book just yet.
No, obviously, this whole thing is a binding contract. We've
immediately locked ourselves in. No, I think until Magus Plus is done, we're probably not going to be. We're not going to hard finalize anything. We're getting close. We're building the mountain. We just don't want to tell you what the peak looks like just yet.
Exactly. Yeah. Sure. Do we want to tell them about? We're kind of cycle back to core because we mentioned something earlier, and said we'd get back to it. And I think maybe
we probably should. Yeah, no, because we are pushing our time. I think a little bit, Derry. Like, how long will people stay for us? That's the question. But.
we won't go into detail because we don't have any detail, but we want to confirm something at the very least. And the thing that we want to confirm is at least 2 big products, maybe 3 depending on how it turns out, but more likely not just 2. And that is when Core comes out, we are looking at returning to Witches Plus and Oracles Plus to do version 2.0 on both of those.
Nice.
We are hoping to kind of like have both of those classes fully retouched to be able to work with the new version of Witches and the new version of Oracles. That might mean that all of the patrons will get retouched. I reckon we'll probably keep what we have and then add more. We had a Patreon vote a while ago. I think it ended like 2 days before the core announcement.
Yeah, that was some weird timing where it was like, okay,
Rats.
the mithril patch that we were going to target, right? Yeah.
But yes, this is going to essentially be Witches Plus Plus, where we are going to look at making the feud that we had another one. I'm just going to drop a spoiler for fun. We are actually going to be turning one of the feats into a full patron, which is the Harrow patron. So if you want to have a familiar that changes form to match the different cards that you draw each day, one day you have a Rabbit Prince, the next day you have a Rakshasa, which is going to be very fun.
That's a big teaser drop. I don't think even the plus testers knew that one,
Whoops.
Derry. That's
Oh
okay.
yeah, we didn't say that one, did we? Woo!
Spoilers.
Well, now they have
there
a
you
reason
go.
to be here.
Yeah.
And of course, oracles. We don't know the extent that they're getting changed. We have a secret thing, but I won't. You guys got the Harrow patron. Be happy with that. Take your scraps.
Yeah.
We got to move on to your other products.
Yeah, no. I think we're very excited for those reworks. Like, the good news is that Derry and I, because we're masters, will get those. We will get those Core 1 and Core 2 books earlier. I don't know when we're going to get Core 1 with a November date. That will probably mean just after Gen Con. That would be my guess. And so when that happens, we'll be able to kind of evaluate and see what the lay of the land looks like. Because of everything in Core 1 kind of corresponds to stuff that we've written, but outside of, I guess what I want to say is that some things will come back into the rotation for our votes on what will be targeted for the next Classes Plus book. And once we have Core 1, it's likely that if we don't see anything alarming in there, we're probably going to include everything in Core 1 in future votes. In some cases, that will be like, for witches, which I know is in Core 1. Obviously, you can't vote on witches twice. Clerics will be in there. Barbarians and I think oracles are both in Core 2. So we won't have to worry about how much those change until we get a hold of Core 2. But witches, I think you could probably expect, the 2.0 updates to be coinciding with the release of Core 1, if we time it correctly. So.
I mean, there's a lot of feats in witches that are not going to be depending on any mechanical changes. Like, I feel, it's more of a remaster than a 2.0.
Yeah. That's really good branding. Where'd you get up?
Yeah, we should
How'd you
use
come up
that.
with that idea? Yeah, that's just novel. It really is.
What about the re-expert? I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah,
Retrain.
double expert.
Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I am very curious. I mean, Case is a brilliant designer. I'm very curious to see where Case takes Witch. I've heard people say just print Witches pluses changes, like do that. It does sound like they're going to go maybe in a slightly different direction. I have theories on maybe they're going to drop the hex restriction, but I really won't. I think it's one of those things where we won't know until we see it.
Yeah.
And depending on how they move the needle, we may leave it close to the same. It just depends. Like, we don't know.
Yeah. But we have to wait one way or another. We need to be sure before we make any changes. But we just want to say that there are going to be changes made to Witches Plus and Oracles Plus at the very least to coincide with whatever reworks are coming.
We haven't forgotten you. You got us here. We're not gonna let things that you all have relied on for so long to not be what they were doing for your tables. We still get great stories. Chaos Witch, I heard earlier today from one of the people in our Discord, having a good time with that. So it's always good to see the stuff that we do making people happy and making them smile and having a good time. And the important thing is that you can keep using that stuff. So we won't leave you behind. We're coming back. Don't worry.
So I got two more questions about your... Oh, sorry. Other than that.
Oh, no. I was just saying, what did we talk about next?
Yeah, I had two more questions about your lineup. Is there anything else? What's next for Lost Omens Plus?
So, yeah, go. No, Derry, please.
I reckon, Tony, you can answer that one. So,
well,
maybe that's next time.
Lost Omens takes a lot out of me as far as editing capacity because I am very particular about how things have to be sometimes, and
I have no idea.
We are spoiled for talent. We have great people. We've had Helen, we've had Jamie, we've had we had freaking Ruvade. Like we've had great people on our projects. Like Dorji's great. I've been blessed. Derry always kills it. I feel like we put together good books with them. So I think the next time we revisit it, because we've decided to start doing core, and we're we've started doing for patrons on our service, We're kind of doing the month by month class path option for patrons, which we've been able to find VTT support for. So everything that gets made for patrons is going to have Path Builder support and Foundry support within the time that it is created. So like,
which is incredible, by the way.
That's amazing.
Very fortunate. Love to the VTT team. Flame Slicer, LeBom James, Lion, like I won't drop their real names just in case, because I don't want to necessarily, you can see them in the book if you read carefully. It's a Kale throws in a hand, and then of course, Josh and Malcolm on the Path Builder side, crushing it. So we're able to put together some content that I think makes it worth feeling like a patron, and you kind of get to be in cute little, sweet lounge. And if you sign up for the plus tester tier, you get to be a part of the play test, and you would get to see the actual mechanics in Magus Plus right now for any of those people interested.
I will also say, just the stuff that we have put out, even last month, because I'm working on the Champion one. It's getting close to being finished, I think. I have two things that I'm probably gonna have to ask for opinions later from the testers, but point is, last month what we put out was an investigator methodology, and you actually were the one to come up with the idea for what it would be, and it's so good. Do you want just a quick teaser to get people interested in saying, oh, I've got to see that, let's check out this Patreon?
Yeah, so I think Derry and I were talking about it, and with the Patreon releases, we wanted to target concepts that aren't necessarily bad, but maybe they're a little more, I wouldn't say niche, but they're maybe a little bit more eccentric than something that would go in a plus material book. So this particular one, we were like, all right, what's really out there? What's something wild that we could do? And we got to talking about I forget, what's the French name of the film? The original.
Oh God, it's a wild name.
Something with the left shoe.
Yeah, the tall blonde man with one left shoe.
With one left shoe.
Or with a red left shoe or something like that.
Yeah,
then the better version, honestly.
So, and then I was familiar with the Bill Murray version of the film, which is The Man Who Knew Too Little. And in both of those scenarios, it's basically a person that gets rolled into a narrative, and they kind of happenstance their way through a bunch of stuff that just occurs through the narrative. So anybody that's, watching anything that Netflix puts out, because they have one streaming service, the murder mystery movies with Jennifer Aniston and Adam Sandler, very much in the similar of what we are calling the happenstance methodology. And it is basically a serendipitous investigator that is based on charisma and not int, and gets basically no skill training at all, except for society, and sort of just bumbles their way through the story trying to solve crimes and their plot nature. So, and as goofy as that thing is, I actually think that it looks like a lot of fun. I'm kind of excited. Yes, Dick Gently is another perfect example of that narrative. It is very, yep, exactly. So, Dirt, yeah, sorry, that I...
Yeah, Dick Gently, I was like, wow, that's a little on the nose.
Ed baited me. Ed baited me a little hard there with chat. I wasn't familiar with the show, but I know Elijah Wood. So
yeah, Dirk Gently.
Anyway, yeah, the show, I think that narrative of the I'm a detective, but I'm not very good at it, and somehow it works out for me, is a fun one that we wanted to see happen. And so that was our most, it's after dark somewhere.
You're not supposed to say that out loud.
You say one wrong thing.
I'll edit it out, don't worry.
It's a little late. So yeah, I think that was the last one that we did. I think the first Patreon one that Derry did had a lot of really fun stuff. He introduced fighting techniques. They introduced, I think the rogue racket. Oh, I love that one. Oh, so good.
For all your cramped dungeon fights in Abomination Vaults where you're between a wall and a monster and that's it. Just don't you want to be able to sneak attack them against a wall? Don't you want to be able to like just kind of just sense where the nearest treasure is? You know,
it's AV, like best AV rogue you could possibly hope for those that are interested in playing Abomination Vaults. If your GM likes Team Plus material, I gotta say, Dungeoneer Rogue, perfect. See if you can sell them on that one. It's a very cramped AP, from what I understand. You should be killing it. So
okay, so I think there was one or two things that was still coming up next, believe it or not, from you guys.
God, I hope not. Do we still have more things?
Derry? I think there might have been one more thing you wanted to talk about, but you've said plenty.
Yeah, so we've mentioned this one before, and we are still working on it. I know to people in Discord, they're probably like, yeah, I know you said that before. We're working on the West Marches thing. We are discussing with different parties on how to set that up. Derry and I are very focused on making sure that we get books that people can use for our material. And it turns out writing books and then also trying to set up a West Marches server is a difficult thing to do. But we have talked about how to approach it. And I think the next step for us is probably trying to get the right community management in place so that we can set that up. But it has not been forgotten. We want it. We know you want to play Plus material. We know you want a place to play with, third party of all walks, in a space that is fun and safe, and you can have a good time, and we're working on it. I promise. The goal is to get there soon. So I think from there, God, I hope we don't have anything else. We're writing it. We're writing it, right? Like, give us time. But I guess we can open up for maybe like a quick Q&A. I don't know how much later you guys...
We got a very important question here in chat.
Go.
Is the Dungeoneer Rogue Racket give you the ability to do that, to do a Cabadon against your crush?
You could. You could
Sorry, had
technically do that.
Right. Someone just needs to write a skill feat that says, if your target is flat-footed to you, you get a +2 to diplomacy against them or something. And there you go. Like, cool. Literally is right there.
There you go. There. Answering the important questions.
Yeah, first Team Plus expansion right there. With that skill feat. Hand on the wall skill feat.
Okay, folks,
do you guys want to go to a dance with me? Always, Chunk. Let's dance together. I know how to do the electric slide and then bad pop and lock. I'm a 30-year-old, so it doesn't look good anymore.
I feel like we're only kind of getting some joke questions here. I know we said some Q&A, but I think the folks have really gone over a lot, and we've gone over time. The silly hour has definitely approached Derry, and I think me and Tony a little bit here too.
Yeah, it is 3:20 a.m., so I'm getting real goofy here.
I am sorry, Derry.
Oh no, don't worry. I'll sleep until midday. It's fine. The perks of working from home is you can just kind of, as long as everything's done at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
There you go. But hey, thank you guys for letting me chat with you and letting everyone come and listen to what you got to say. I'm so excited to see what's coming next. It has been a great year seeing what you've done for the community, in the community. You know what? You made Pathfinder Infinite a very different place. So thanks, and keep helping us all grow. So
thank you very much.
Yeah, no, and Helen, thanks for being a part of it. Impossible Lands is a fantastic book. Helen was on it. Student of the Ebon Mausoleum, which was shortened to Mausoleum Student, I still love that. And Fleshforged Tamer is another huge
those were a blast to write. Thanks for helping me on those.
I have a friend who's playing that archetype, and they have nothing but praise for it.
Aw, thanks. Those are so fun.
I will give... Chat asked one more question. Will there be Arcane School-specific feats for Magus Plus? So you can expect some more, probably like Arcane Shroud.
Okay.
That's as much as I'll give you. You will not get ones that are... Well, yes. You will... I would say in the vein of Arcane Shroud, where the school does fluctuate maybe how the feat works, but we won't have anything that's written that says, like, this works only with a specific kind of school, at least right now. We might explore that for certain hybrid studies, possibly, but I would say probably you'd be looking for the Arcane Shroud treatment. Swashbuckler has ones that better benefit certain styles but aren't limited to them, maybe like that. Possibly. That's as much as I'll say on that one. Possibly. Swashbuckler comment almost got me to spoil something, and I won't do it. Won't do it, Derry.
No, we're keeping that one a secret.
No, that's under the lid. No one knows.
We don't want to promise anything we haven't fully figured out yet, but one day that will make sense.
One day it will.
Okay.
Continue the conversation over here.
What a great segue.
Yeah, there you
Well,
go.
I'm just
Perfect.
letting people know where they can go. I know a lot of people came from the Discord, but just in case you got some new followers.
Yeah.
It's not a
No,
nudge.
yeah.
Well, okay, maybe it's a little bit since I have stream keys.
Well, again, thanks for having us, Helen. It's been
Sure
an
thing.
absolute blast. It was fun to talk. Thanks to Fan Plus for showing up today. Appreciate you all. Love you very much.
Thank you all for coming down.
Bye, folks.
Toodaloo.